All right. Everything is good now. We back in action. Peace, peace. Hope everybody is good. We're going to go right in. How to channel information. Shuffle up the cards. What up, what up, what up, what up? What up, what up, what up, what up? What's up, what's up, what's up? Peace, peace, peace. Hola, peace. What's up, what's up? How's everybody doing? Yeah. Definitely shout out to people who recognize what this is. Yeah. I played this for a reason. We're going to let it play out and we're going to explain everything. What's the deal? What's the deal? Strictly for the dark souls, you know what I mean? It's a little bit too hardcore for the regular audience. I'll tell you about the history and the background of the song, and this is gonna tie into the information. So I'm just giving you a live preview of what I'm actually talking about. You know what I mean? I got some channels up here too. Yeah, you remember when I dropped it? Yeah, that's when I was back in New York. So I got some channels up as well. So I'm giving y'all living proof of what I'm actually talking about before I get in. Alright? And we're going to pull a couple cards if we get time. I don't know how much battery I have. I don't know how long I'm going to last. But we're going to ride it out. If it cut off, it cut off. But I'm going to get as much as I can out. You know what I mean? Alright. Hope everybody is good. Now, when it comes to channeling information, what is channeling information? What information are you channeling? What is a channel? Right? Now, this is strictly based on your personal skill set. Now, what I mean by that is we all came into this world with a certain level of expression. For example, some of us prefer to write. Some of us prefer to draw. Some of us prefer to dance. So on and so forth. You get where I'm going with this. So depending on your particular method or path of channeling is going to dictate how you receive information. Right? So as I just gave you a preview of the song that I did earlier this year, the song itself is a channel. Now you could say, yeah, I wrote the music and, I recorded it and all that. But the actual process of creation is a channel. And what I mean by that is, for example, during the making of me writing this song, I was traveling the whole time. I'm sitting on a train and I'm going all the way from the north to the south. Okay, sorry about that. I'm going all the way from the north to the south, the east to the west. So I'm traveling literally around the whole city of LA. And as I travel, I begin to receive words. And I'm just writing it down as I travel. Now, this wouldn't happen when I was standing still. Like if I'm just stagnant, sitting around somewhere, nothing was really happening. It wasn't until I started to travel. Some people prefer to walk. Some people like to be driven. Some people like to drive. So on and so forth. Whatever your particular method is. as I began to travel and move, and the melanin started to activate, and, secrete in the pineal, I'm seeing visions and all that. All right. Now, another example. So I'm just giving you quick examples so we can be on the same page. Another example of a channel is these. Now, of course, you may be unfamiliar with these symbols because they are original symbols. These are direct channels I receive. Some of these are 2014, some of these are 2015. And the reason why I brought out these particular channels is because they're older. So I didn't have some time to reflect on the channels and see what they really mean, as opposed to something that I just received yesterday that I'm still researching. So these are some things that I can talk about because I didn't, experience it, and I've been able to reflect upon it, and I can relay this information to you as opposed to, me not understanding, right? Peace, peace, peace. Now, before I get into my particular spiel, we're going to pull a few cards and see what the tarot has to say. We're going to see what the spirits have to say. Then we're going to get into my particular spiel. Now, for those who are unaware, this is a time of the fairies. The fairy kingdom, for those who know about elementals, working with elemental energies. The fairies is the air or the wind element. So whenever you see the Christmas lights and the trees, that is symbolic of the fairy kingdom. So Christmas represents the opening of the fairy kingdom. That's why, gnomes and all this, even though that's more of an earth sign. So you have the god forms and the archetypes, gods like Osiris, Horus, Isis, so on and so forth. Then you have elementals. The difference between the god forms and the elementals is being more specific about the type of energy you want to work with. What I mean by that is, for example, if you want to open up the fairy kingdom or the wind or the air element, you know that, you could smoke. That's an air element. It can be just you breathing. It can be you lighting an incense, the smoke. Or it can be you putting lights on a Christmas tree, or putting lights on your altar, or putting lights outside of your home to channel in that force. The difference between elementals and God forms is God forms are more like mathematical formulas. Like all these things here, mathematical formulas, symbols and drawings and all this, right? Now, the elementals are less mathematicals and more like a living intelligence. Even though all the mathematical formulas are living intelligence as well. But if you want to specifically work with a specific element, so if you wanted to strengthen the air element within yourself, then you can open up the fairy kingdom and have that explained to you. Now, are you going to have actual fairies speaking to you and all that? If you're a person who can hear spirits, maybe. But if you're not a person who can hear spirits, it may come in the form of your intuition. You may be drawn to look up something. You may be, a certain song may start playing over and over in your head. It can come in whichever form it chooses to come. But as long as you are open to the process, you will understand when it's time for you to look up certain things or do certain things, or you know when it is, when you feel a certain thing inside and it guides you. It's not really something I can explain, but we all know what it is if you have that inner urge, to desire knowledge and understand and so on and so forth. So the difference between the elementals is you are working with direct elements as opposed of mathematical formulas, which take time to open up within you, that are much greater and grander, like planetary energies and chakras and all that. But this is working directly with the elements because we can harness all elements because all of the elements are ether. We are etheric beings. Everything is composed of ether or dark matter, melanin, real, prana, chi, whatever you want to call it. So because that is the core of everything in all elements. Peace, peace. What up, psychosexual? Salute to you. Now, since we understand that when you work directly with specific elements, because as I just said, everything comes from the ether, and we are ether beings. Because we are ether beings, we can harness the elements. You know, when you hold your hands together and you can feel the chi in the middle of your hands, for anybody who hasn't done that, you know, when you press your hands together, you can feel a force within your hands. That magnetic force that you feel, that same magnetic force that you feel in between your hands can be directed. It can be channeled. And again, this is called real energy, prana, whatever you want to call it. Since it can be affected by thought, because you can feel it in the middle of your hands. 333, definitely 333 is definitely up here. I'll show y'all that a little bit later. But since you can feel the energy in the middle of your hands, and it is affected by your thought, because if you start thinking, expand, 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 you will feel it pulsating and expanding in your hands. So you know that it is influenced by thought. So no matter if it's fire, water, air, or earth, these are all different forms of ether. So when you want to work directly with a certain element, it strengthens your understanding and just your element, because we are all the elements. So strengthening your communication, you know, your air, your communication with the spirits, your communication with people, your communication with light, you know, the communication of the brain signals, all types of communication, the body communicating, you know, strengthening your communications is working with the air element, because it's all about being light. Communications start to be interfered with when we become weighed down by our own thoughts and our own emotions, not necessarily anything outside, because we understand that everything on the outside is a reflection of the inside. So whenever we find ourselves in hell, you know, whether it be a bad situation, bad family situation, bad living situation, whenever we find ourselves in hell, it's because of our communications within are being interfered with for whatever reason. So we want to strengthen our communication so that we can lift ourselves up and we can travel light and not let all these thoughts and emotions weigh too heavy on our hearts. And that's why, you know, obviously the heart chakra is a gateway. You know, your heart has to be lighter than a feather if you even want to go into the spirit realms, because you can't carry all that baggage into the spirit realm. So if you wonder, if you're not dreaming, if you're not having channels, if you're not really having spiritual experiences, most likely is because your channels are blocked up. So if you want to open up those channels, if you want to understand how you can best open up your channels, that's when you start to work with these elements. And you can work with the elements in the form of elementals, such as, again, fairies. And so some people consider these things, you know, myth, but myth has truth within it. So although, again, you may not be hearing fairies, you may not be seeing fairies with your eyes, you may not be having a physical experience, but you will be having an internal experience, because you are channeling a certain energy on the outside, which channels this energy on the inside. And this energy has an intelligence. And when you tap into the intelligence of the energy, you can communicate with that intelligence, and it can exchange information with you based on your particular situation. As I said, with these channels fit my particular situations at that particular time. As you can see, you know, again, you can see. I just want to, you know, get symbols, just get an idea of what I'm speaking about. All these things came when I was going through a rough time. Again, this is 2014, 2015. So this is if you check back on my videos, if you look at my videos I did around 2015, it was a very, very hard time for me on an internal level. It may not have seemed that way with the videos. You know, you see a lot of videos and hip hop and all that. But internally, it was a very, very challenging year. Obviously, you know, 2015, you add all that up, it adds up to the number 8. And we know 8 is Saturn. And, Saturn is all about, challenging yourself and expanding yourself and limitations, so on and so forth. So it matches up. So with that being said, these channels that was coming through helped me supersede those limitations, because without these channels, I would not really had a sense of direction. It's because of these channels that I had the spiritual energy, or the prana, started to flow in me again to help me get out of, something that would have turned into a depression. When things are, chaotic, and, again, when you have all this external hell going on around you, sometimes you just need to sit back and reflect and, weigh your heart and see if it's a little bit too heavy for you. Again, if you look at this, I'm not sure if y'all can understand that, but that says REM sleep. Now, my memory connected to this particular channel is, for whatever reason, I just drew it. I'm just freestyling. I'm just drawing. Right? I'm just drawing. And that's just what it came out to be. I may have been studying REM sleep at the time. I'm not sure. So whatever, I draw it. So I'm in LA at the time. So I go to Hollywood Boulevard and I get into meditation. And I just sit, just right on the streets, while everybody's just walking around. I just sit down, and I'm just not in the middle of the street, but just off to the side. I sit in meditation pose, back is straight, and I just have this showing. So it's as if you see a person meditate, then in front of them you see a notebook, and what you see on that notebook is this. So it's just me in meditation, and you just see a notebook. It says REM sleep. Now, again, you see, since it's decorated, you may not know that it says REM sleep right off the bat. You probably didn't know it said REM sleep until I pointed it out. So I did that specifically to affect the subconscious mind, because I know people, even if you knew what it said, do you know what it means? Do you know what REM sleep is? Do you know how important that is? You get what I'm saying? So I wanted to paint that image of, this is something that isn't really talked about in society or popular. So I'm showing you an unpopular idea, but it's a very significant idea, because if you use it properly, it can affect your whole life, right? For those who don't know what REM sleep is, this is a state of sleep that you dream. So this is a dream state. When your eyes, it's called rapid eye movement sleep, because your eyes is all over the place, right? This is when you dream. Now this goes into, let me see, we'll say this one. Because if you can see, it's words on here. I'm not sure if you can see, but it says Draco, and it says, this says sonar, this says echo, this says solo. And so it's words here too. And all these words have a meaning. But let me see what I'm looking for. If you see here, it says Solor, Solor, right? It's all over, if y'all can see that. I'm not sure how clear it is. If you can't see it, let me know. But this is say Solor, S-O, excuse me, S-O-L-O-R. What's the significance behind that? I saw that in the dream world. I just so happened one day, I go to sleep, I have a dream. And it's a dream that I remember, and I was painting graffiti. Somebody said you can't see it. Okay, let me take this down for those who can't see it. Try to make it all neat, but we gonna make it happen. All right, here we go. Get a closer view on this. All right. So this is a channel. Okay. Put this back up here for now. What's the significance? The significance is, as I said, I saw it in a dream where I just so happened one day go to sleep. I end up having a dream, and the dream consisted of me painting Solor, basically SOLO, which breaks down to 7. So the reason I added a R because it still is the same vibration. I'm like, solo is kind of anybody could have that name. So let me just add the R, make it, make it unique. Now it's a Spanish word, Solor, which means comfort. You know what I mean? I'm like, okay, I like the way I twisted that. So I had a dream, and then in the dream I was doing graffiti. The graffiti I was doing, I was tagging Solor all over the city. That's just what I was doing. So I asked myself, what if I actually started to do that? Just because this wasn't something I was thinking about before. But I'm like, what if I actually started to do that? Because this is what happened. And I also have my sketchbook here because I want to show you the progress. Now, I asked myself, what if I just started to do that for real? What if this is a little bit more than a dream? What if this was an actual channel? Because why did I remember this dream and not the dream from last night or the dream after that? You know what I mean? Like, why did I remember this specific dream? Because sometimes, that's how the intelligence communicates through dreams. So, spirits and all that. If you really want to see some mystical, magical shit, that goes down in the dream world. And the most of the time, if people don't see that happen, is because when we use up all our energy during the day, we don't really have enough energy conserved to dream. When you astral project through the solar plexus. The solar plexus is also an area for you to store energy. So before you go to sleep every night, when you do your meditations, hopefully you're doing your meditations to add a separation between your waking life and your afterlife or your shadow life, whatever you want to call it. Do energy work and store energy up into your solar plexus. Easy way to do it, just visualize yellow light around you, all around you, yellow light. Breathe in the yellow light, even gold light if you want to. Breathe in the yellow light, see it in your mind's eye, the yellow light going into your nostrils, your nose, all the way down and swivel around to the solar plexus. Do this, 4 sets of 308 times, whatever. Do that so that you can store up energy in your solar plexus so that you can actually have some energy to remember your astral travels. See, we have to put work into these spiritual things. Like, they're not just because you lay down and go to sleep doesn't guarantee you're going to remember your dreams and doesn't guarantee you're going to have a spiritual channel. All these things require energy. So when you start to practice things like pranayama, which is, again, learning how to send the energy throughout your body, your muscles, your central nervous system, your brain, and charge, being able to charge yourself up, the sexual force, bringing it up, onking, whatever, learning how to control that force and swivel it around and, just dance with the force and just really get in tune with the force to the point that it becomes second nature to you. This is when you can start to hold and gather more energy because now you're becoming more acquainted with the energy. So the more energy you can hold, the grander your reality. Even if you have nothing, you can still have a high quality life. The quality of your life depends on your energy, because if you have no energy, it doesn't matter if you have money. It doesn't matter what you have. If you don't have energy, you can't enjoy anything you have. You can have everything in the world, but if you have no energy to enjoy it, it's as if you don't have it because you have no energy. But when you build up your energy, that's the start of anything. Whatever you want to do in life, you can apply this to anything you do. Just learning the science of controlling the energy, controlling the force, and you can apply that to whatever you already do, and it will enhance it. It's going to enhance anything that you do if you don't already know this science, because this is letting you know that this isn't just things that people talk about in books. This isn't just stuff that the East made up. They build their whole system around chi. The East, their whole system, the medical system and all that. And you missed the part where I explained how to build up your energy. Okay. Right after I finish this point, I go back over it. So as I was saying, the East built their whole philosophy around chi, meaning how you think, your health, your wealth, all these things are centered around you building up your chi, you being able to hold more chi. This is why you would take on a martial art. Not because you look cool dancing and you look cool fighting. It's because you are learning how to build and contain and store your chi up. That's why you really learn a martial art. So that you can learn how to harness your chi. More so than who you're going to fight or who you're going to defend yourself against. Does cannabis deplete chi? It depends on how you are using your cannabis. Again, let me go over the technique to build up your energy, and I will reiterate if you want to mix this with things like herb or alcohol. So again, for those who missed it, the technique is if you want to build up your chi, visualize yellow energy or gold energy all around you to the point where you can see it in your mind's eye. Literally see the yellow in the air. Like, use your imagination to the point where you create a space where you see a yellow mist of energy that you can breathe in. Every time you breathe, you're breathing in this yellow or this gold mist. And you are using your imagination or your mind's eye, and you are seeing the energy go into your nostrils, or however you want to just let it dance and go to the solar plexus and let it swivel. Do this about 108 times. You do this before you go to sleep. There's a greater chance that you will astral travel and remember your astral travel and actually be conscious of it to the point where you can actually now direct your astral travel. See, this is all the same stuff. Whenever you're talking about dreams, astral travel, wealth, health, sexual force, all these things revolve around chi. All these things revolve around energy. So the greater you can build up your energy, so let's just say, okay, you built up your energy. So if you are ever tired, if you ever do need a burst of energy, you have stored energy in your solar plexus, and now you can imagine the energy being dispersed all around your body whenever you need it. So whenever you need a quick energizer, instead of using coffee or some shit like that, this energy that you have stored up in your solar plexus. So let's just say you woke up in the morning, you dedicated 20 minutes to gathering all the energy in your solar plexus. So if you ever do get tired, you have all this energy gathered, and now you can dispense the energy and keep going, as opposed to trying to use some outside influence. And this goes into how does this fit in with weed or alcohol, and do these things deplete your energy? It all depends on how you use these things. And what I mean by that is, for somebody, it depends on what your reason. Some people smoke to get spiritual channels. Then you have some people smoke because that's the first thing they need to do to get up in the morning. They need to smoke to wake up. They need to smoke to eat. They need to smoke to do this. They need to smoke to do that. You know what I mean? It really depends on what type of smoker you are or what type of drinker you are. Some people sip on the alcohol to get spiritual channels. Then some people sip on the alcohol to, try to detach from reality and, go somewhere off elsewhere. So it depends on how you utilize what you're doing. So if you're using these things, these tools, to go deeper into your spiritual channels, and again, they're tools. They're not what's getting you there. They're just tools to help you there. But if you learn how to utilize your energy, you don't even really need it. Like I've went deeper into my conscious mind and my subconscious mind without any assistance other than my own water. And I think this was a time I was practicing urine therapy. For those who still can't wrap their mind around that, if that's another way to build your spiritual energy, because it has chi. It's alkaline water. It's already chemically balanced to fit your body. And again, we don't really need to get into that. If you in the know, you in the know. If you're not in the know, then it's, you know what I mean, it is what it is. So with that being said, I'm going to draw a few cards. Let's see what the spirit says, and we'll go from there. All right. So I already got everything shuffled up, so I'm just going to pull cards. All right. So the question is how to channel information. What would be the best way, or an easy method, or however the information comes out, but it deals with channeling information. So let's see what the tarot says. See what the first card is. Eight of Swords. Interference. Right? We talked about the interference. Like, if you don't take time out to build up your chi and to dispense your chi when necessary, when you allow all the outside influence to seep into your subconscious mind, see, what happens is we are influenced by our environment. Or we may be able to consciously block it out, but on a subconscious level, it still is affecting you, and it affects you a little bit more slowly and a little more subtly. And you would see it more so reflected in your dreams. When you try to cut your mind off, because you may be in situations that may be very, hard to balance or juggle, whatever the case is, whatever the interference may be. This is why we have to take time to balance ourselves, to build up our energy, to stay at optimum health. If you don't build up your energy, if you don't practice moving the energy around, the energy becomes stagnant. When the energy becomes stagnant, it's easy for other type of energies to start to magnetize themselves to you. All these subatomic particles and all these energies and waves can magnetize themselves to you if the energy is stagnant, if it's not moving around. It's just like money. Money likes to move around. Money doesn't like to just stay and sit. Money likes to make more money, basically. You take the $100 to make another 100. You take the 1,000 to make another 1,000. Right? So the energy wants to be in motion. And if the energy is stagnant, then you can magnetize other types of stagnant energy. It's the same thing where if you leave fruit out too long, the deterioration, it starts to deteriorate. And if you ingest a bad apple, you can potentially, get sick. Although it's technically still an apple, but it's not the same apple it was before it started to rot. It's the same way. If the energy isn't moving correctly, it starts to get stagnant, and that starts to magnetize that type of energy to you. And that's when people start to feel heavy and weighed down, and now all of a sudden new bills is popping up out of nowhere. You arguing with your spouse, and kids is not listening, and all these extra problems start to come out of nowhere. They start to manifest because you're magnetizing all this stagnant energy. So we have to always remember, it's never the outside. You know what I mean? Shout out Pennsylvania. It's never the outside. Whenever the outside is chaotic, that's just a sign for us to go within. Whenever that interference is heavy, remember, we see that 8. Remember, the number 8 is Saturn. Limitation, challenge, strife. Right? So whenever you are faced with that Saturn, what do? You go into yourself and you start to channel information. Like, okay, you need an internal solution. Not, okay, if I want to better this situation, I need to do A, B, C, D, and E. First, you have to change your attitude towards the situation and change your mentality of how you look at it. You don't never want your motivation to be going against something else. What do I mean by that? What I mean by that is you don't want your motivations to be one extreme or another extreme. Democratic, Republican, good, bad, black, white. You don't want to be on one opposite end of the same thing. You want to be right in the middle. You want to be centered. So while all this extra shit, all these extremes are wobbling, and everybody wants to get caught up in everybody else's problems, and be personal, and everybody want to take things, it's all over the place. People want to take things personal. You will always be centered and balanced because you always understand that if I can internally balance myself and soothe myself and release myself from it, it will affect my attitude and my mentality towards the situation, and it allows me to see clearer, and I'm also able to see further foresight into the future and predict certain outcomes, and I can maneuver and adjust myself to be in alignment with that which I predicted. Some people call this planning, I guess, but let's go to the second card. The Aeon, which is the pure fire element. The double X is 20. So you see this Hebrew letter, see the pyramid. The up triangle is fire. And this is also fire. So it's primitive fires or primordial fires. The new fire is a new Aeon. That's why it's called the Aeon. It's the birth, the new reality that's coming in. So first, peace, 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 love, and light. Once you tackle this interference, once the interference is tackled or understood and properly balanced, this ushers you in. As you see the God form is centered in his throne, right? We were just talking about that, being centered in your throne, right? You see this Hebrew letter, you also see it reiterated here, right? It's the same thing as this, right? So when you are balanced, so now you got a greater sense of what's going on. So as you see the goddess Nut, which represents the stars and the cosmos, he has a greater sense of reality. Now he is seeing his whole truth, his full truth, as opposed of what's just going on right in front of him or what his senses can detect. He's going to the spiritual reality. As you see his babies being born at the bottom, all the way up to the grand universe. You see the wings right in the middle, transcendence, so on and so forth. Then you have the spiritual, the higher self, in the form of a baby. So you got the sitting on the throne, you have the child force. That's what the new Aeon, being childlike, right? The baby Horus, Hippocrates, right? Get past the interference, understand the interference, adjust your attitude and your mentality towards the interference, because it doesn't stop. You just change your mentality towards the interference. You don't stop the interference. You just redirect the interference because it's all the same energy. You learn to direct and redirect information, or in other words, energy. And when you start to have more control over how you direct and control that energy, it opens you up to a greater sense of your reality. You will be the God, or the God that's sitting on their throne, having a greater sense of the whole entire cosmos. Right? See what the last card is. The Chariot, which is a card for Cancer. You see the duality, you see the black and the white animals. You see the knight, you see the crab on top of his head. He's in a chariot, and he has a spinning vortex. He's holding the spinning vortex, which is positioned right at his lower dantian, which is another area in your body, which is 2 inches below your belly button. where you can also store energy, also called the sacral chakra, which is connected to the planetary energies of Venus. Well, not Venus, Jupiter. Jupiter, connected to the metal of tin. And Jupiter is expansion. So you see, it's an expanding energy, right? This represents a crossroads. And again, we was talking about not being on either side of the extremes. So you see the extremes right here, right? And again, you see he's centered in meditation pose. You see he got his legs folded and all that in meditation. And he also has an armor. He's armored up, so he's traveling. So the chariot is traveling. So this is a traveling man or a woman, shielded up, protected. A traveling person or a spiritualist, protected. Peace to Finland. What's up, what's up, what's up? And what is this? That's that energy. The energy is twirling within him. And you see that it gets red hot in the middle, and you see it starts to emanate light. It starts to emanate light right in the middle. So when you have that force twirling within you, when you have access to that force, this is what makes you the chariot. Now you can travel into all these inner dimensions and all this other stuff. Again, astral traveling. And again, this is for the Cancer card. So Cancer is a water sign. So it is dealing with, dreams and sleep, in the home life, so on and so forth, your family life and, fresh waters and emotional energy. That's all the Cancer energy. So that energy is always moving because it's a cardinal sign. So it's all about fresh energy, right? What do I think about ayahuasca? Ayahuasca, is a great teacher. If you are blessed to be in her presence, allow her to teach you her secrets. That's what I have to say about ayahuasca. All right, so to reiterate what the tarot said one last time, interference, getting in control of the interference and redirecting the interference, which leads you to have a greater scope of your cosmic reality as well as your higher and your spiritual self, which in turn creates the traveling warrior, we can say, knight, right? The knight that's constantly traveling in between dimensions. So as you see, he's traveling in between dimensions, or she's traveling in between dimensions. That's why it represents that water. It represents the subconscious, represents the emotional energy. That energy needs to be twirling and moving because that's how most of us waste energy. We either waste energy directing our emotions into things that really don't require our emotional attention, or physical acts. Physical acts, obviously, we know what those are. So emotional energy can be a way where your energy can be leaked. You leak energy, when motherfuckers gossip, when motherfuckers, when people hate on each other, all this negativity, like that drains and that leaks your energy. This is why those type of people, they have to have that type of stimulation. When you have to feed off of somebody else's downfall or reality, when that's your source of energy, where it's at somebody else's expense, that's parasitic, where you don't get no type of enjoyment or fulfillment other than at somebody else's expense. However, when you can draw and pull that energy in yourself and you build up that energy yourself, you don't really care about what everybody else is doing or what's going on, because you have enough things to worry about yourself. And I want to show a couple more images here while we're talking about it. This is another channel from around that same time. This is called Amori, and you see this is the original image. So you see right there, it's a flaming pyramid. These are the channels I received. I didn't question it. I just drew. And one of the channels that was coming through around these times was flaming pyramids. So I started to draw flaming pyramids. This is also an eye that I was seeing in the spirit realm. So again, all these images that I was seeing, like I made sure to document this because again, this is why this type of information is important. Because when you document your spiritual journeys, you can gain certain insight that you can't gain no other way. Because these are your journeys. When you go to sleep, when you astral travel, when you walk through this waking life, these are journeys and information that you're collecting for your own soul's sake. This isn't about nobody else. So why wouldn't you want to document your spiritual journeys, especially when you're talking about the astral plane and Akashic records and you're having profound experiences like shit that you can't even really explain yourself. You're having all type of experiences in the dream world that you may not even understand, but you may understand at a later date. It may not make sense at the time, but if you document it and you look back at it as some time goes on, it still can reveal information to you, although it happened at a previous time. And this is what I mean. Although all these channels, this isn't things that I got yesterday. These are things that I know I have for some time. But as you see, I'm still using these things as a teaching tool right now in the here and now. In this moment, these are still useful tools to reiterate the message that I bring today, although this is years old. But I'm just giving you live examples. Here's another one. This is 2014. So as you can see, looks like alien symbols. Again, you see the flaming pyramid. You see the eyes. Like, I don't know what the fuck this is, but this is just things that I was seeing. It's not supposed to make any fucking sense, but these are just symbols. You know what I mean? Like, these are things that I didn't understand at the time, but the story behind these things was, because, you know, I used to draw when I was younger, but I stopped. I started drawing again, you know, after I had my son. It's just for whatever reason, when he was born, I was feeling a particular type of energy. I still can't explain it, but I couldn't express it with words, so I drew it out. I can't actually find the image that I drew. I have no idea what it is. If I look harder, I can probably find it, but I don't have the image. But I drew the image to reflect his energy, and the image that I drew to reflect his energy, it looked, you know, like you can say a demon, if you want to say that. There's a very chaotic energy that I wasn't really used to feeling. So I took that and I started to draw again. I'm like, okay, let me express myself. All of a sudden, you know, my grandfather died shortly after my son was born, and he came to me in a dream. I don't remember what was said. I just remember feeling his energy, and I woke up and I started to draw on the wall. Never did that before. This is before I was doing graffiti and all that. This is just the origins of it. Now, my video, if you look at my video, The Complete Guide to Manifestation, you see an image. The thumbnail of that video is what I drew after my grandfather came to me in my dream. So that's why I put that image up, you know, because that's the image. That's the channel that I received. Like, I didn't know what I was drawing all the way up until the point that it was done. Then I looked at it, I'm like, oh, this is cool. This is pretty cool. But up until that moment that I was actually done, I didn't know what was going on. I'm just drawing. I felt it was an internal sensation that was just guiding me. I didn't know what would be out. I didn't know what the outcome was. But all I remember was, you know, my grandfather came to me. I don't remember the conversation, but I'm like, oh, he imparted this image to me. Didn't know what the image is, and it wasn't until years later that somebody else looked at it, and the first thing they said was, like, this looks like a map to Atlantis. That was there. Like, I never looked at it like that, but that's what they saw. Somebody else saw that as a map. So I'm like, shit, maybe I don't know. Again, this is all stuff that was coming through. These are just other versions of the eye. When the eye was first coming through, I'm just seeing several versions here. Obviously, this is the snake energy. More flaming pyramid stars, yada yada yada. Right? And I'll show you this last image. Some more chaotic energy. All right, so again, I'm gonna open up this sketchbook, and that'll be it. Just want to show a couple more images, and hopefully I brought home the point why this type of information is important. You know, channeling, building up your energy, why REM sleep is important, why astral traveling, how all this spiritual work is energy work. It's the same thing. There is no difference between spiritual work and energy work. You do energy work so that you can do spiritual work. That's why you work out your body. That's why you meditate. You're not necessarily doing this for the health or the wealth specifically. You're also doing it for what you can see or what you can do in other realms as well, or other dimensions. So it's not just strictly just for your waking life. It's also for your shadow life as well, or your existence in a parallel universe or a different dimension. Because all these things exist. You know, when you study things like the M theory, you'll know what I'm talking about. So I want to show, I have my sketchbook right here. I just want to show just the evolution of one of my styles. Hold on. Now, here we go right here. Okay. So as we see here, I'm not sure if that is backwards for you guys, but that says Draco. I did this in 2014. So obviously we're not talking about the current definition of Draco, which is a gun. You know, in hip hop, that's what it is now. This is prior to that, which we're talking about the star constellation of Draco, which is why it's chaotic. So we're talking about the star constellation of Draco. This is 2014. Now, what I want to show you is when I got that channel, I had to evolve the style. What do I mean by that? I'll show you right now. So as you see here, when I got the channel, I'm like, okay, this is the name I'm going to use, Draco. I'm going to be, you know, doing this on graffiti walls. I'm like, the next thing you have to do is perfect your hand style, which is, again, just getting, if you're doing it and other people are seeing it, so when you take it off of the paper and you start putting it on the wall so that other people can view it, you start to implant symbols into the imagery to affect the subconscious mind to channel a certain energy. So now it's not just graffiti. Now it's the channel or a portal to open up a certain star constellation, which is why when you see very, very advanced graffiti, when you can't even make out what the letters are, you feel like you're staring into a portal. For those who are, you know, who can appreciate that type of art, you really are staring into a portal. That's why it's so intricate to the point where it's going straight past your logical or your left brain, to the point it's going directly into your subconscious. And because it's going directly into your subconscious, you can feel the image more so than you can understand what the image is speaking logically. The colors are, you know, you're receiving information from the colors. You're receiving information from the shapes. And all these things in a certain mathematical combination or a certain mathematical formula is opening up a certain portal subconsciously. Basically, yes, these are, you can say, life-size sigils. That's what it is. That's what graffiti is. That's what art is. It's life-size sigils. So if you understand the science behind that, then you can apply that to sigils. If you prefer sigils, you may not be into graffiti. You may prefer sigils. Then by you understanding that science, you can apply it to sigil. So again, once I received Draco, I started to just write it over and over and over and over again to make it unique. So now it's just not DRACO. I wanted to make the D look unique. I wanted to make the R, I wanted to give it a style. I wanted to give it a personality, or give it an energy, make it come alive. It's not just Draco. I wanted the Draco to speak when it is seen. So as you see, these are just the first drafts. And as I go further, you will start to see how it came through. See, it doesn't really make any sense now. But as I turn these pages, you will begin to see the style develop, and you will begin to see as I start to impart the personality into the words or the letters, right? So these are much smaller. So I started off big, and now I started to do it smaller. So as you see, Draco, 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 right? You kind of start to see a personality coming in, but not really. You start to see it formulating. See, a true graffiti artist has a sketchbook, because you didn't just write this one time. You wrote this over and over and over and over and over again. So when it actually did get on the wall, it's perfected. You had to perfect it on the paper first. Here's the next page. That's why, I'm revealing this, because this is the art behind it. So when you see it with your eyes, you realize that it was a perfected style. It has a personality. Let me zoom in closer. See, now I gave it a crown. You probably can't understand it now. It's a little crazy. But now I gave it a crown. So if you see this swivel right here, you see this swivel and you see these lines. I started to give it a crown. So now it says Draco with a crown on top. And as you can see now, I gave it the emphasis line. You see the two lines here, the two lines there. All right. You thought that was it? Nah. See, as you see, you start to see, now you're seeing the development of it. So now you see the emphasis points. Now you see I added this sigil to the bottom of it. See the crown on top, the 811 at the bottom, and DRACO, right? So now you see it's starting to develop a personality. Now it's just not letters. It's starting to become alive at this point, right? It's like 2 more pages of this shit. So I had to go through this whole process before it came to life. I had to go through this process to give it a life. So when I actually started to do the graffiti and, put it actually up, I gave it life. It had an actual intelligence at that point. I gave it an intelligence. But this is how you work your magic. You can put the same energy you put into the graffiti, you can put into items on your altar. You can charge or enchant certain items. Clothes or whatever. Excuse me. Right? I got you, man. It's crazy. So, right, see, Draco with the crown. Right? It's like, man, I'm just going to show you the final product, all right? Let me just take a sip of the holy water, if you didn't know. All right. So let's get to the point here. So by the time I got here, now you see it looks a little bit more legible. Now you see it at the top as well. Now it started to look more legible. So I had to write it like 1,000 times before it actually started to look like that. Right? Now it looks like something, right? So now when you see it, it has a personality. And of course, at the 333, that's when I first got this channel, before I even knew it was associated with Jimi Hendrix and all that stuff. That's before all this, but 333. So this is years back. You know, boom. All right. Think I made my point there. So I just wanted to give y'all a personal look at, my personal book of shadows, as some will call it, to see that I'm really, this is things that I actually do. Now, somebody asked me about 1111. Can I speak on 1111? Not sure. I will speak on 1111 and we'll get up out of here. So 1111. 1111 is a number that a lot of people see when they first get into spirituality. They start seeing 1111 all over the place, and it gets to a point where they start to look into it because they're seeing it so much. Then they start to wonder, like, yo, is this a message? Is a message trying to be received, or like, what is this? Why am I seeing this all the time? So when they start to do their research and they look into it, it's an intuitive call, right? You have 3 master numbers, or sometimes 4 if you go by the Indian or the Vedic astrology. But for this point, we'll just stick with the 3. You got the master numbers are 11, 22, and 33. 11 is the calling, the call to spirit, the awakening to spirit. The 22 is the master builder, and 33 is the master teacher. So everybody who's seeing the 11 is exactly what it means. It's like a call to spirit, or a call from your spirit, if you want to put it that way. You first receive the call through the 1111. The 1111 is calling you to look deeper into spirituality or numerology, or however it pans out for that particular person. But when you see the 1111, it's a call from your spirit, or a call to your spirit to go deeper into your spirit, or go deeper into your soul. That's why, again, a lot of people start off their journey seeing all these numbers, 1111. So when it's specifically 1111, it's the call. Now, if you add all the numbers up, 1111, obviously, 11 also is a number of the high priest. In the tarot cards, I guess I can pull it out, since it's here. Sure. I'll show you the card that I'm talking about, since we're on the subject of the 1111. Give me 1 second to find the card. Number of the high priestess. One second. Let's see. There we go. So you see that 11, right? Or that 2. This is the high priestess, or the priestess. The element, or the moon, the planet of the moon. And you see a lot of imagery in there. We don't have to get into all of the imagery, but for those who know how to decode, you can see where that's going. So you got the high priestess, which is, you can say, is the virgin. Then you have the empress, which is the impregnated woman, right? So the high priestess or the priestess represent the virgin, the oracle, right? The muse, the medium, the psychic, right? Pure feminine energy in its purest sense, receptive to its environment, being in tune with its environment. So it's a little plus lesson for the 1111. If somebody had asked me something, how did this tie into the song? The song, as I was speaking about earlier, was a channel. I had to travel literally all over the city to gather those lyrics. So, when I was in the north, I could get a couple lines in the north, a couple lines in the south, couple lines in the east, couple lines in the west, right? And I compiled all these lines together by traveling all over the city. So the final product, when I say L fresh as hell, people say, well, what is that? Well, L fresh as hell obviously works with the spirit of Mercury. Because, when hip hop, an element of hip hop is being fresh, right? You know what I mean? Being brand new, coming forth by day, having a fresh mentality every day, having a light heart every day, being fresh, being awake, being new, being open to information, right? The number 5 in numerology. So when I say L fresh as hell, so I'm not just talking about, actually literally being fresh on a physical level, but fresh also on the mental and the spiritual level, which is basically reiterated throughout the song. So I'm going to explain the song, and I'm going to play it one last time before we exit out, and you can listen to it knowing the secrets behind the song, a little plus lesson. Now, again, El Fresh as Hell also resonates with El Diablo. El Diablo, if you are into comics, is, you can say, it's a I don't know the story heavy, but it's basically a man who got possessed by an ancient Indian spirit. So it's a man. He may be Mexican, Hispanic, Puerto Rican, I'm not sure. But somewhere down the line, his spirit was possessed by an ancient Indian or Aztec or Native American or Mayan spirit that was angry at the state of the world nowadays, and it was basically hell bent on destroying the system. Sounds very familiar, right? So, what does that have to do with the song? The reason I personally use even though I didn't really cuss too much in the song, but I use very direct imagery. I'm not even going to say words, it's imagery because it's music. I use very direct imagery and very, you can say, sexual energy, because the connection that's generated through the love force or the sex force, the connection that's generated from those two energies coming together produces magic. We all know this, right? It produces children. It produces physical manifestations. We see the results of the sex force all over the place. So there's no question about that. It's the most powerful force in the universe. So once you learn how to direct that force, as I say, excuse me 1 second here. Give me 1 second. Sorry about that. Package came to the door. Sorry about the interruption. We back at it. So, now, going back to the channel, the reason why I mix up my lyrics, very vulgar but spiritual, because I didn't want to really be educating with my music. Okay, this is what you need to do with your life, and the world needs to be a better place, and fuck the system and all that. I'm like, everybody's already kind of going in that lane anyway, right? So I said, how can I make myself unique? What position can I take that's unique, that hasn't really been explored yet? That's the manifestation of L Fresh as Hell. Because L Fresh as Hell isn't concerned with the problems of the world. L Fresh as Hell is a concern with what we need to do as a people or what we need to do as a community, or this is what's wrong with the world. L fresh as hell isn't concerned with the wrongs of a flawed creation. The creation is flawed by nature. We understand that already. We understand that this world was never perfect and will never be perfect in the sense of how we see perfection. So it wasn't like we were doing good and we fucked up. It has always been a flaw. We understand that already. So L fresh as hell, main concern is indulging not only in the physical reality but also in the spiritual reality, basically directing that sexual energy properly, which makes it magical. So although it's talking about a lot of, twerking and ass bouncing and fucking and sucking and all this shit and just all its forces scattered all over the place and channeling spirits and all this stuff, it had to be very direct and vulgar, because if it doesn't have that energy surrounded in it, it will be overlooked. What I mean by that is, if I wasn't speaking so directly, would it really affect you in the way it does? Would you really care? Because, some people would say hip hop is dead because, there ain't no lyrics. People don't care no more. People just making shit up and saying anything. So I said, okay, let me put some lyrics. I know how to write lyrics. Let me put some lyrics. So I want to make it lyrical, but I don't necessarily want to make it like I'm teaching something. I don't want to make it teachy. I want to make it very direct, give it that West Coast feel. You know what I mean? The West Coast has always been about that energy. It's about the being very direct and upfront with you, and not necessarily trying to, this is what you need to do with your life. No, this is an example or a manifestation of a deity, or you can say a elemental, or however you want to put it. L fresh as hell is a manifestation of a spirit. To me personally, it is the spirit of LA. L fresh as hell is the spirit of LA. This is the mentality of the city from a spiritual perspective, not necessarily everybody in the city, because obviously everybody isn't into everything that's being spoken about. But for those who can understand the imagery, for those who are into the dark side, you can say this is the type of shit they would be into. They really wouldn't be into, okay, we a secret society and we stay silent and we move in silence. We already know. Like, once I hit end on this video, this information will not be uttered by me again, unless I'm speaking to a particular type of person. I don't go outside and people know what I'm about, but that's because it's not supposed to be that way. This is personal. However, doesn't mean it has to be, just full of hard work and we can't have a little fun. So the song is just me having a little fun, giving a little knowledge, a little information, and it's being said in a way where it stimulates you to the point where, unless you just a hater and you just don't like people cussing and you don't like, strippers and ass bouncing, which who doesn't like that shit, right? But you have people out here that don't fuck with that, and if that's the case, you're not going to understand, you're not going to like it. But for those who can appreciate a little fun, a little spirituality, a little knowledge, a little originality, doing something unique, something different, then you can understand where I'm coming from. And with that being said, I appreciate everybody for listening, watching, chilling out. We're going to take another sip of the holy water. Appreciate the tarot for coming through. I appreciate, the energies coming through. I know it made the video a little bit more colorful. So we're going to go out. We're going to play the song one more time. Again, for those who've heard it a million times, 1,000,001 won't hurt. Hopefully I'll be back tomorrow. It's the holidays. I apologize for the gap. The holidays, had to take care of birthdays and Thanksgiving. Also, Christmas is coming up. I got to do a little traveling, but hopefully I can get back by tomorrow. Even though I don't know what you guys want me to talk about, let me know what y'all want me to talk about. If you want to make a request, send the request to lordasar@gmail.com. rdasar@gmail.com if you would like to make a request. Other than that, I'm just going to hit the record button and I'm just going to be right back at y'all like I did today. I'm pretty sure nobody of mine. We want to play it one more time and we're going to be up out this motherfucker. Turn this shit up. So peace. We out this motherfucker. You know what I mean? I guess I can show y'all some more imagery, right? Oh, we out. Kamikaze might just kill everybody. Kamikaze, dropping bodies. Kamikaze goes crazy, everybody. I'm a king, bitch. It just hit the scene. Chasing out of the green instead of my dreams while making it green. Sex, magic, tactics, looking at life she never had. She a money manic, savage, lavish with the static. Bang, it's insane the way she pumping into my name. When she dropping it, can't be tamed. She keeping it real with yin and yang. She addicted to the game, and I'm spitting in the brain. Steady aim, like Luke Cage. Got that fire, she make it rain. Oh, he must be part of the spirit, speaking for the tongue of Phoenix. Call me prophet of the Gothic. Watch it rearrange your logic on the throne. Can't be cloned, hold up that super strong. Call me wizard of the spirit, travel through to the etheric. Call me L, rich as hell. You can't wait, it's on the scale. Sipping from the holy grail, snatching up your fucking bail. L, rich as hell. L, rich as hell. You can't weigh it on the scale. Weigh it on the scale. I see that which is hidden, close my eyes and I just listen. Twisted, having all these visions of my future, how I'm living. Heighten up the low vibrations, sacred, while still in the matrix. Geometric constellations from my mind for conversation. It's a dawn of the marijuana with that message tron. So yes, it's Metatron. Yes, I guess it's better. I do nine in the sky, swinging swords like samurai. Cause the bullshit and the lies so that I can sip it. Call me L, rich as hell. You can't wait, it's on the scale. Sipping from the holy grail, snatching up your fucking bail. L, rich as hell. L, rich as hell. You can't weigh it on the scale. Weigh it on the scale. Bitch, I like the style. With all type of sounds. With all type of rounds. That'll knock it down. That'll knock it down. Knock it down. Type of sound. Type of sound. Type of round. Type of round. I like the style. Out of space. Homeostasis. You would think the wind was laced. Prophecy. Philosophy. Equivalent to the Odyssey. Snatching up your fucking bail. Sipping up the holy grail. You can't wait, it's on the scale. L, rich as hell. L, rich as hell. You can't wait, it's on the scale. Sipping from the holy grail. Snatching up your fucking bail. L, rich as hell. L, rich as hell. You can't weigh it on the scale. Weigh it on the scale. Alright, we out this motherfucker. I'm gonna show y'all one last image. I drew this years back, probably like 5 years ago. This is just the color of my aura. It's like a light blue. This was just how I seen myself in the astrals at that particular time. So just showing y'all some, just, you know, influence of creativity. Keep the creative juices flowing, you know what I mean? All my artists out there, you know, be creative, stay creative. And, you know, it's all type of stuff in here. So yeah, we out. What more can I say? Hopefully I'll see y'all tomorrow. You know, I'm just gonna hit the record button and we just gonna see what the fuck come out, right? Peace, hotel. We out this motherfucker.